Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like people carry secret thoughts they'll never dare to voice? Desires so deeply tucked away that even if you ask them directly, they deny it? Women, just like men, have these hidden corners of imagination. And one of the most mysterious among them is a fantasy about power, about being overpowered, not in the sense of violence, but in the sense of surrendering control to a man who is steady, composed, and unshaken. Now, before your mind jumps to extremes, let's make one thing clear. This is not about domination in the brutal sense. It's about a psychological fantasy, something rooted in contrast. In daily life, women are expected to be strong, independent, decisive. But in the private world of their imagination, many secretly crave the opposite. To let go of control, to lean into trust, and to feel safe enough to surrender. The paradox is fascinating. Out in the world, she might lead meetings, handle stress, and make critical decisions. But behind closed doors, the very same woman may desire to step back, to feel the presence of someone whose confidence and calm authority allow her to rest. This isn't weakness, it's balance. The Stoics understood this paradox of human nature. They often spoke about how people seek opposites to restore harmony. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." When you think about it, that very idea mirrors this hidden fantasy. The freedom she secretly desires isn't found in more control, it's found in release. Let's put it into a modern example. Imagine a woman who works 12-hour shifts as a lawyer, constantly battling deadlines and clients. She's admired for her drive, her sharpness, her decisiveness. But at the end of the day, her hidden longing isn't for more control. It's for a man who brings calm certainty, someone she doesn't need to direct. In her private thoughts, she wants to feel what it's like to let go, to not be the one steering every decision. Now, here's where the Stoic lens comes in. As men, it's easy to misinterpret this fantasy, to either dismiss it or misuse it. Stoicism reminds us to recognize human nature without being enslaved by it. A woman may have this silent fantasy, but that doesn't mean you perform for it. Instead, you embody strength, stability, and presence, not because you want to manipulate, but because this is who a Stoic man is at his core. He doesn't chase power. He doesn't beg for control. He simply masters himself, and by doing so, naturally becomes the kind of man who fulfills what others quietly long for. So here's a reflection for you. In your own life, do you radiate calm confidence that makes others feel safe enough to let go around you? Or are you still searching for external control, forgetting that real power begins inside? Let's step back for a moment. When we talk about women's hidden fantasies, it might feel like something new or modern. But in reality, the Stoics had already uncovered the patterns of human desire 2,000 years ago. They understood that people are often drawn to what seems opposite of their daily roles. And this isn't just about women, it's about all of us. Take Marcus Aurelius, for example. As Emperor of Rome, he carried unimaginable responsibility. He commanded armies, governed a vast empire, and dealt with constant political pressure. Yet in his meditations, Marcus often wrote about his longing for simplicity, peace, and detachment from the burdens of power. In other words, though he was the most powerful man in the world, he secretly desired to be free of control. Isn't that fascinating? Even the Emperor of Rome longed to surrender the very authority everyone else envied. This shows us something universal. The human heart seeks balance. The lawyer who wants to let go at night, the emperor who wants peace from endless decisions. These are not contradictions. They are the natural swing of the pendulum of desire. Now, the Stoics didn't just notice this. They built entire teachings around it. Epictetus said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of things." What does this mean in our context? A woman's silent fantasy about surrender isn't about weakness or shame. It's about the way she interprets balance in her inner world. To her, Giving up control in safe, trusted hands isn't degrading, it's liberating. Let me give you a story to illustrate this point. In the Roman world, there was a Stoic philosopher named Musonius Rufus. He taught that men and women were equally capable of philosophy and virtue. But he also acknowledged that society often placed heavier public burdens on men. As a result, he noticed that women, though often hidden from public life, developed desires shaped by this imbalance. They longed for freedom of mind, while men sometimes longed for relief from duty. Each group dreamed of what they didn't have. Doesn't that sound familiar today? Women in high-pressure careers dream of rest. Men overwhelmed by pressure dream of escape. And yet, both dreams point back to the same Stoic truth. Our desires often reveal the areas of life where we feel unbalanced. So here's where you, as a modern man, can learn from Stoicism. Instead of being surprised or even judgmental about these hidden fantasies, see them as mirrors of human nature. They aren't strange and they aren't wrong. They are signs of the balance we all seek. Now ask yourself, where in your own life do your desires reveal imbalance? Do you long for freedom because you feel trapped by routine? Do you crave control because deep down you feel powerless? When you recognize these patterns in yourself, you'll also begin to understand them in others, including women's unspoken fantasies. And once you understand, you stop being surprised. Instead, you become calm, patient, and wise, just like the Stoics who walked this path long before us. Think about the word power. What comes to mind? For many people, it brings images of wealth, status, or physical strength. But Stoicism teaches us that real power is something far deeper. It's not about how much you can control others. It's about how much you can control yourself. And ironically, this kind of inner mastery is exactly what makes a man most attractive. Women's hidden fantasy, the one they rarely voice, revolves around surrendering control in safe hands. Why? Because attraction often flows towards strength, stability, and presence. A man who knows himself, who doesn't flinch at chaos, who doesn't get carried away by anger or fear, that man radiates something magnetic. It's not loud, it's not showy, but it's undeniable. Let me give you an example from history. Picture a Roman general leading his army into battle. The soldiers look to him, not because he yells the loudest, but because he stays calm when the storm hits. His composure gives them confidence. Now imagine that same presence in a personal relationship. A woman doesn't secretly dream of a man who loses himself in panic or who bends to every emotional shift. Her fantasy is of the one who stands unshaken, the one she can lean on when her world feels heavy. The Stoics were very clear about this. Seneca wrote, "No man is free who is a slave to his passions." Let that sink in. If you're ruled by anger, jealousy, or fear, you are not in control, you are weak. And weakness never draws true respect or attraction. On the other hand, when you master yourself, you naturally become the steady ground others want to stand on. Now here's the twist. The fantasy isn't about being dominated. It's about finding relief in trust. Women, especially those burdened with responsibility, secretly long for the rare feeling of letting go without fear. And the only way that can happen is when they sense they are with someone who has power over himself. Let's bring this to modern life. Imagine two men on a date. The first constantly checks his phone, fidgets when silence falls, and tries too hard to impress. The second sits calmly, listens with patience, and doesn't need to fill every moment with words. Which one do you think awakens that hidden fantasy of safety and surrender? The answer is obvious. Presence is power. And here's the challenge I'll give you. In your own life, notice where you lose control. Do you get irritated in traffic? Do you snap when someone disagrees with you? Do you feel restless when things don't go your way? Every one of those moments is proof that you're still handing away your power. A Stoic man takes them as training grounds, opportunities to practice control, to strengthen his presence. Because when you become the man who doesn't break under pressure, you naturally become the one others trust enough to let go with. That's the real root of this dark fantasy. It's not about overpowering someone else. It's about embodying the strength that allows another person to release their grip on control and finally breathe. Here's the tricky part. Knowing about someone's hidden fantasy, like the one we've been talking about, can be tempting to exploit. But Stoicism warns us, understanding human nature is not a license to manipulate. True wisdom is recognizing these desires while maintaining integrity, balance, and self-mastery. Let's go back to the Stoics. Epictetus often reminded his students, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. In other words, you can't control anyone else's desires, fantasies, or emotions. What you can control is how you show up. You can be calm, grounded, and confident, but you cannot and should not force someone to feel a certain way. Here's where most men trip up. They see a woman's fantasy as a roadmap, as if it's a checklist to get what they want. Stoicism says no. Instead, treat it as a mirror of human nature, a way to understand her, and more importantly, yourself. The fantasy reveals what humans long for: security, stability, trust. But your job is not to become a performer. Your job is to become a man who naturally embodies those qualities. Let me give you a story. There was a Stoic teacher in Rome named Musonius Rufus, who trained his students not only in philosophy but in ethics and practical living. He emphasized that understanding human weakness or desire was a path to empathy, not manipulation. When his students observed people's hidden motivations, they learned how to act virtuously, not exploit. That is exactly what applies here. Recognize the fantasy, but don't try to manufacture it. Now, apply this to modern life. Maybe you notice subtle signs in someone you're dating, a longing for calm presence, for patience, for steadiness. You don't need to force it. Instead, focus on cultivating those traits in yourself. Practice patience when conversations go sideways. Practice presence when chaos erupts. And most importantly, practice self-control when your own emotions spike. By mastering yourself, you naturally provide what others are secretly craving. Here's a reflection for you. Are you aware of the ways you chase approval or try to control outcomes in relationships? Every time you do, you're moving away from the Stoic ideal. The stronger you become in your own mind, the less you need to manipulate, and the more naturally attractive you become. Presence over performance, this is the Stoic path. And one more subtle point. This doesn't just make you attractive to others, it liberates you. When you stop trying to bend the world or someone's secret desires to your will, you experience real freedom. You learn that your power lies in your self-mastery, not in controlling another person's fantasies. That's the ultimate lesson of Stoicism applied to relationship. Understand the human mind, but stay true to your own. So here's a mini challenge. Today, notice moments when you feel the urge to manipulate or impress. Instead of acting, pause. Breathe. Respond with calm, grounded presence. This small practice, repeated daily, slowly builds the kind of inner strength that naturally attracts, without ever forcing anyone's hidden desires. By now, you've seen the pattern. Women's hidden fantasy isn't about domination, submission, or some secret desire to be controlled. It's about trust, presence, and the ability to surrender safely. And the key takeaway from Stoicism? You don't need to chase fantasies or manipulate anyone. You need to master yourself, and in doing so, naturally become the man who inspires that trust. Let's put this into a modern scenario. Imagine dating someone high-achieving, ambitious, and independent. On the surface, she seems unshakable, even untouchable. But beneath that armor lies the same longing we've discussed, a desire to lean on someone steady, calm, and confident. If you try to force control or perform to fit her fantasy, you'll only appear needy or fake. But if you embody Stoic strength, composed under pressure, emotionally stable, and self-reliant, you become the kind of man she can genuinely relax around. Here's a practical example. Suppose she's stressed about work or life. The average guy might panic, offer excessive advice, or try to fix everything. A Stoic approach? Listen calmly. Offer support without overstepping. Maintain your own composure. Your calm presence alone communicates safety, more than words ever could. That's the real power. That's the unspoken attraction she's drawn to. And this applies far beyond dating. In friendships, at work, or with family, embodying calm confidence makes you someone people trust instinctively. Stoicism teaches that attraction, influence, and respect are byproducts of mastery over yourself, not manipulation of others. This is a principle both ancient and profoundly modern. Now, here's a reflection for you. Ask yourself where you're giving your power away in relationships. Are you reacting to emotional turbulence, trying to control outcomes, or seeking approval? Every time you do, you're stepping away from the strength that naturally draws others in. Stoicism teaches you to pause, assess, and respond from a grounded place. This is how knowledge becomes strength and strength becomes attraction. Finally, let's end with a subtle challenge. Over the next week, notice moments where someone leans on you, seeks reassurance, or looks to you for stability. Instead of reacting impulsively, practice the Stoic approach. Remain calm, listen, and offer steady presence. Observe how this shift changes the dynamic without any effort to manipulate or perform. You'll start to see the quiet power of your presence, how it naturally fulfills unspoken needs without ever compromising your integrity. Remember, women's hidden fantasy isn't a puzzle to solve or a trick to exploit. It's a reflection of human longing for safety, balance, and trust. And the Stoic man doesn't chase fantasies. He embodies strength, patience, and self-mastery. In doing so, he doesn't just attract women. He becomes someone others can rely on, someone whose presence alone inspires calm, confidence, and trust. That's the real secret the Stoics have been teaching all along.